It is Monday, November 11th, 2024. This is another edition of Baseball Today. That is my man, Trevor Plouffe. I am Chris Rose, producer Dan, along for the ride as well. Hope everybody had a happy and safe weekend out there. And I know that you're going to have a busy, busy day on this Monday, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I'm going to go tailgate a football game
Yeah.
and watch a Monday night football game. So I'm excited about it.
I'm curious how the tailgating situation is for a Rams game in Los Angeles.
It's decent. We went to, I don't know, the place that we park. They kind of have like a setup already, so there's some food there. But we're gonna bring our own stuff. I'm a very efficient camper tailgater. I have all the stuff for it. So this is kind of when I shine, Chris.
Okay, love it. I want pictures and I want full stories on
Okay.
a show later. Going 3 times this week. So we're going Monday, Thursday, Friday. Okay. We got an episode we want to make up and we want to make it up to you. And it's going to be a very good one. I've already got it planned out. We're going to be good to go. Start off with a quick tip of the cap. Miami Marlins have named their new skipper. Reportedly, it is Clayton McCullough. Most recently, a Dodgers first base coach. I like it because he grinded for so long, spent 8 years in the Toronto system, rookie league, A-league manager. Those are guys who love it. They eat it, they sleep it, they breathe it, and they might not think they ever are going to get the opportunity to sit in the big chair at the major league level. So good for him.
I had multiple like 45-minute conversations with this guy as I was like kind of like interviewing for a spot with the Dodgers in player development. And so we hit it off. Like he's got a ton of energy, a joyous guy. So yeah, I am also happy that he's getting a shot here.
Multiple 45-minute
Oh,
conversations.
dude, it was crazy how much they made me talk to people on the phone before I got invited out there.
Wow. Okay. They offer you anything?
Yeah, I mean, I went down to instructional league and did 3 days down there, but I told him I just wasn't.
Oh, not your
I
thing.
wasn't into it. At 3 days, I was like, I can't do this. I'm sorry.
All right, let's get it going. Roki Sasaki. He's going to be put out there. That's right. He's going to be posted by his team in Japan. So that means the 23-year-old right-hander will be available for all 30 teams. There's going to be a 45-day posting window where negotiations can happen. Now, once again, he is under 25. He has less than 6 years of international experience at the biggest level. So that means that he is not going to get Yoshinobu Yamamoto money. He's going to get essentially the deal that Shohei got when he came over here, where he would be pre-arb, then he was arbitration, the whole bit. So he's going to run the gamut. So what that means is all 30 teams seemingly have a shot at this guy. Because of that, does that make him the second most coveted free agent, or interesting free agent, I should say, behind Juan Soto this year?
I think it could be both interesting and coveted because of his age, and guys like this just aren't just available usually ever, except via trade, I guess. But this is a guy who's, stuff obviously plays. I think the scouting and the data is so much better, and it's easier to like tell if a guy is going to be able to transition from, Japan over into the States. I think this guy is going to be a stud. It's interesting because, yeah, I mean, any team just has to convince him to come play. It isn't a dollar amount right now, although I am curious, like, how many teams are saying, like, hey, man, we'll get you in here, we'll get you an extension, all these things. I'm curious how much of that talk is there. He clearly doesn't have that leverage necessarily, although I guess he kind of does have some sort of leverage in that regard. The only thing I would say that would kind of disregard the interesting part of it is, and I'm kind of going back my words here. I said everyone's got a chance at him. I don't think everyone has a chance at him. I think it's going to be the Dodgers. I think it could be the Padres. I think it could be the 2 New York teams. I think those 4 teams are kind of the 4 teams that have the best overwhelming shot at getting him. But yeah, again, I think reiterating what I was saying earlier, this guys like this at his age just don't come on the market very often. So we will see a lot of fanfare and hoopla about where he's going. But whatever team gets him is going to really benefit from it because of that low pay and like low risk factor, I guess it would be.
Yeah. I suppose the risk factor is that velocity on all 3 of his top pitches, fastball, slider, split, all went down this year. We don't know what he is in terms of a workhorse. The most innings he's ever thrown is like 129 and change. So he's never been
Yeah, but you're
asked.
paying for what you're paying for what he does. If he goes to the arbitration system, you're
I
paying
get
for his
it.
performance. So the risk factor then is
You're right.
it's
You're
the
right.
posting fee, right?
There really isn't a risk. It's negligible is the risk. So, you know, and if he posts by a certain date, then it falls back in the 2024 international bonus pool. But if he posts after a certain date, something like that, then it goes to 2025. And then that seemingly resets the market for everybody because there's some teams that have no international bonus pool money left. But if you go to 2025, then that opens the door for seemingly more teams. I would agree with you in terms of I think he's looking at a very, very small group. Is it possible that Seattle and San Francisco, because of where they are geographically and being closer to Japan, does that play a role? It's possible. I think that the Padres have a decent shot at it. Yu Darvish, one of his mentors, Hideo Nomo, one of the guys who started the excursion from Japan over to the States, works with the San Diego Padres. That has got to that's where are you going?
What?
Where are you going? You okay?
I just turned my heater off.
Oh, okay. I didn't
I'm
know where you
listening.
were going. So I think that, yeah, but I would say maybe Dodgers 1, Padres 2, then the New York teams, and I'd throw Seattle and San Francisco in there. But it is interesting. I'm I'm always fascinated by guys who are more mythological creatures than anything else. The most I've seen him throw is in the World Baseball Classic where he struck out 11 in less than 8 innings. I don't know. I'm excited to see him.
I hope there is some. I hope he takes his time and makes a decision. I want to hear about the meetings and how they went, and I kind of hope he's not as secretive as like a Shohei was and all of his. I want to hear about like the thought process and all the things that are going to go into his decision because it's just unique. It's a unique aspect of our game, the posting system from these from the Japanese league.
Yeah. I mean, most guys end up in places where you're not super shocked. I don't think, right? For the most part. Like, I'll spin the clock back to well over a decade when Yoenis Cespedes ended up in Oakland. Like, I was shocked by that. I was like, what? He ended up in Oakland? That one knocked me
Yeah.
silly. I don't think that this is going to knock us silly, but could be very, very interesting. We'll see. What has been interesting so far is the start of Blitzball Battle 5. It has been a blast. We have our next game coming up Tuesday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We will see you in the chat. Here's a little appetizer for you. Blitzball Battle 5. We got the defending champion, McFlurry Power, taking on hook, line, sinkers. And I think the biggest question is, can anybody score off of Colin Stone?
That's the biggest question. Colin Stone won everything last tournament. He's got every pitch you can draw up. He can move it all over the place. Or will you rely on having to get the praying mantis to give up some runs?
The last guy that he gave up runs to is actually somebody he'll be facing, Dan Canobio.
Wow.
When you haven't participated in the warehouse,
she gets a little shady.
Prediction time.
I don't want to scare you here as I pick McFlurry Power, but Colin has just gotten better because since BB4, he's been playing in that professional Blitzball league with the Team Como guys. Hard to pick against the defending champs.
I'm also going to pick McFlurry Power.
But I think that old man Dan is going to surprise us. K-Mac admitted to us, I don't like facing Dan Canobio. We will see you later today for Game 4 of Blitzball Battle 5. So make sure you tune in. You get a chance to see the champs, get to see the return of old man Dan as well, who you've already taken verbal shots at, Plouffe.
No, he's my one true rival in the warehouse. I can't stand him when he's on the warehouse floor. Everyone else, I'm like, I like, but I dislike at times. Dan, old man Dan, hate your guts on the floor.
Wow. We'll see if he's lost his zip. The lone left-hander out there. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, Derek Gold of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch says the Cardinals are going to gauge trade interest in 10-time Gold Glover Nolan Arenado this offseason. Now, you have to keep in mind he's got a no trade. He's coming off a down year. He's got 3 years and $74 million left on his deal. So do you think that he's going to remain a Cardinal? Do you think he's going to get traded? And if so, which teams should show interest?
I think he might remain a Cardinal unless they're willing to eat a significant portion of that contract. And if they are, and they can convince him to waive the no trade, it'd be hilarious to see like 3 different teams paying Nolan Arenado, because that's what it would be. Because I think Colorado's still paying, and then you have the Cardinals would pay, and then the new team. That'd be funny. But I think there is a lot of places that are kind of desirable to go that kind of need a third baseman. We did a show earlier on talking about where free agents are going to go. I mentioned somebody going to like the Detroit Tigers. Like, I think that's like an interesting spot for him to go. I think the Yankees is an interesting spot for him to go. I mean, if the Astros end up not bringing back Alex Bregman, like Houston's an interesting place for him to go. So there are teams that are going to be in contention, that for sure in contention for the playoffs and World Series, that need third base help. And, you can talk about his down year, but I would still bank on Nolan Arenado providing you value, when he's on the field, especially if you can get that number down to where you want it. So I think that's where my head is at with this, is if the Cardinals are willing to eat salary, I think there's a host of places that are desirable enough for him to waive his no trade clause. So I guess to answer your question, is he going to be on the move? If all it takes is them wanting to eat or be willing to eat a little money, then I say yes. So yeah, I think he is on the move.
So it starts with the Cardinals sitting down with Nolan Arenado and saying, this is our direction. We gave it a shot for a couple of years you were here, and it just hasn't worked out. So we are going to work on getting young guys some playing time, including a couple of guys, maybe a Jordan Walker returning to his original position of third base, where we want to try and do this. We also want to try and get you a ring. You've been a good soldier here the last few years. You've been an excellent ball player for a dozen years at the major league level. Let's get you somewhere where it works. So if Nolan Arenado hears that, and it's not like he's been there for 12 years. He's been there for the last couple, and it just hasn't worked out as a team. Now, the other side of this is the money situation. Even though Colorado's paying 10 of his 74 mil, that's still 3 years and $64 million. So that's $21 million a year. You're still paying Nolan Arenado. I don't know if that makes sense for teams. I just look at it. Last year, barely a 700 OPS. This past season, if you're into the
It's
rest
not going
of
to
the
make
numbers,
sense for teams. No.
right. The exit velocity, the barrel rate, the hard hit rate, not only below league average, but far and away the lowest of his career. So now what are you paying for? Well, you've got to turn him into essentially probably a $14 or $15 million a year player. Maybe that means sending back a slightly better prospect to the Cardinals. We've seen teams that are willing to do that. He's got to be the 5th best offensive player on a contending team now, for it to make sense. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to step up into the middle of the lineup and just be a 100-run, like a 30-100 guy. I don't.
Yeah. So does Detroit or Kansas City get involved for teams that are kind of up and coming and maybe are willing to make him a fairly highly paid player still on their team, even if St. Louis eats some of that money? Does he go to Toronto? Does he go to the Yankees? I think you add it all up, and I do think he's on the move. I think all the stars are going to align. I think he sees his buddy Goldschmidt is out of town. I think he sees the writing on the wall in St. Louis. I think he looks big picture, and he says, even if this team can get back into contention, that it's still not a winning formula here. I'm willing to go somewhere else. I think he goes.
This guy's 2 years removed from a 7.7 WAR, an 891 OPS. He's only 33 years old, so I don't think this guy's dead. Maybe he needs a change of senior. Maybe he needs some motivation. That happens a lot at the end of guys' career. Like, man, I'm in St. Louis. Things are going the way I thought they were going to go. The team's really not playing for anything. When you played for 12 years in the show, like, it can be a grind and monotonous, and you might lose a little bit of that, lust for work, dude. And if you go to a team that you feel like you're being challenged and has a chance to win a World Series, it can reinvigorate a lot of that. So I wouldn't if I was one of these teams that has a vacancy at third base and I could get the Cardinals to eat some of that money, I would be very willing to take a chance on Nolan Arenado because it is 3 years it's not that play till he's 36. I'm
Right, that's
on
doable.
that with Nolan Arenado. Yeah.
I think he ends up in Detroit. I think they're willing to send back a youngster. I think they're going to spend their free agent money on the pitching side of things. And I think that he provides some leadership and obviously still some defense and can provide some pop in that lineup. Although I think that there are other guys who are kind of taking the mantle and running with it as young, everyday ball players. So that's what we think there. I got something else that I think about. Underwear. Dude, we know how important it is to protect the boys and give them a comfortable place to live. How often have you tried on a pair of drawers and you're like, these things, what the hell? Are they made out of cardboard? Like, they're horrible. You want to feel good. You want to feel like they're not even there, but they're doing their job. Sometimes you'll walk past a mirror after you throw your underwear on and you're like, what the hell? I look like a float in the Macy's parade with this thing on. It's horrible. They don't look good. They don't make you feel good. And guys, sometimes we want to feel sexy. Like, we want to hang out with the person that loves us and they're like, yeah, damn, you look good. And that's what happened with Skims. I swear to God, I had them sent here. Michelle was like, oh, I know Skims. I know all about the Kardashians doing their thing. Let's see these things. I put them on. I almost did like an underwear fashion show for her. And even the dude who is the king of the dad bod, she was like, now these are nice. And when your lady who you've been with for 3 decades starts saying stuff like that, you damn well better order them now. Skims for men. They make you feel great. They make you feel confident. They look incredible. And Plouffe, they feel great, don't they?
I love them. I'm just curious. So you did this underwear modeling thing, and then
Yes.
did she just rip them off right away?
Well, the rest of it, we'll have to do that. That's
Okay.
baseball
Different
today.
show?
That's baseball today after dark. Okay, that's what's coming up a little bit later. So we just want you to shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, you select podcast in the survey. You select this show drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gifts for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever. It's also available at skims.com. Go do that today. You will thank us later. Yeah.
I've been loyal to a brand that has some L's in their name. I'm not going to say the brand because I thought they were excellent boxer briefs. That's what I wear. Skims sent us out the package to try them on, and they clear. Like, they're my new go-to.
Nice. Like to hear that. All right, we continue on. We just talked about a little bit about Nolan Arenado. One place he is not going is San Francisco, right? Because they just extended Matt Chapman, so they're good over there. The second reason he's not going to San Francisco is because The Athletic is reporting that new team president Buster Posey might have to deal with a chopped-up payroll. Is ownership screwing Posey right out of the gate if these reports are indeed true?
I don't know about screwing him right out of the gate. Does it take him out of like the Juan Soto sweepstakes? Probably. Was Juan Soto going to be a San Francisco Giant? Probably not. But I from my research here, it still looks like he's going to have anywhere from like $50 to $60 million to spend in the offseason. So look, dude, you have to understand what you sign up for when you become a baseball ops guy. You understand, like, hey, does my team typically spend a lot of money? Like, they're up there, but they're not like we're giving out contracts to everyone. He understood the situation he was going to be in. So part of your job as a president of baseball ops is to find, what I would say is good deals, like supplemental talent to go along with a couple guys. That's enough money to go sign a couple like real deal free agents in the offseason and then find supplemental talent to go along with it. So I don't think they're like, making his job extremely difficult. I mean, is it like Steve Cohen saying, hey, go blow past the third, fourth luxury tax tier? No, it's not like that. But I don't think he's working with the Cleveland Guardians payroll or, something like that. So I don't think it's as bad as the headline makes it sound necessarily. I guess that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, so he's in a very, very unique position. Not only is he one of the legendary players in this organization, he's also part owner of the team. So if there's a guy who understands that part of the program, it's Buster Posey. Now, what that does is it also opens him up to criticism. That's just the way this can go, right? I mean, the fans love Buster Posey. We talked about this when he took the job, that over the last 4 decades, how many more popular players can you name in Giants lore than Buster Posey? I mean, it's definitely fewer than on one hand, and he might be this one.
Yeah,
You
I
can
think
make
he
the
is.
argument that he's that
I
one.
think he is number one.
Okay. Fans don't like it when you screw with their team. And if he does not get the job done, he is going to fall off of that perch. And he knows that. He knows that when he signed up for it. And he gets the deal. With all that being said, I think they make some moves. I had a guy, pretty decent player, going to the Giants in our free agency draft that we just did on Talking Baseball. Go check that out. But I don't think that they make that. I don't think Willie Adames is coming there, in part because of what they did last year at the end of spring training, where they brought in both Snell and Chapman, guys who I believe had qualifying offers attached to them. So they get Chapman, they lose Snell, presumably, and now they also lose draft picks on top of everything else and international bonus money. Sometimes that goes out the window. It's weird where they are. I just feel like
where they are.
I think they're one of the teams where if you were to list like 5 weirdest places where they sit in Major League Baseball, the Giants could be at the top of the list.
It's just an interesting place to play too. I mean, for a hitter, you're like, man, that's a big park. Like, that's not exactly where you think of thriving as a hitter. For a pitcher, a little bit different. You kind of like that. But then you think of the division they're in. Okay, are they better than the Dodgers? No. Are they better than the Padres? Like, no, they're not. The Diamondbacks are like there. Like, this is a very good division. So now you start thinking about, okay, like, where's the competitiveness with the San Francisco Giants? So there's just a lot of things that go into a decision when you are a free agent that don't necessarily bode well for the Giants. I think that's not like a hot take, or I'm not like that's not shots fired. It's just kind of like the reality of the situation.
They're a really good organization from several standpoints. Like, they do take care of their players.
Sure.
It's a cool place to play.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But and they always have legends around. Now, they lost a couple this year, obviously. Yeah. Willie Mays, Juan Marichal, but few organizations do a better job than the Giants wrapping their arms around guys that have helped them get to where they are. But yeah, if I'm a big name pitcher, I look at their lineup and I go, is it good enough? Like, I want to say in spring training where everybody's positive and all that stuff, but really, are we going to be good enough? Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Maybe we'll have Logan Webb on the show shortly, and he can talk to us a little bit about it.
They had some guys come this year that are really, underrated, Ramos and Fitzgerald, and, bringing back Chapman to stabilize everything. I mean, there's guys there, but I think if you just look around the division, even, it's like, okay, we're probably playing for second place.
Yeah. Yeah. But once again, as long as you make it,
yeah.
Although this year that wasn't the case. Obviously, the top 2 teams in baseball, record-wise, in their respective leagues, I should say.
Yeah.
Thank you. Speaking of which, New York Yankees picked up the 2025 option on Aaron Boone, to the dismay of some fans out there. Would it have been smarter for them to just cut bait at this point, rather than picking up the option and letting him twist in the wind, perhaps as a lame duck manager?
This is an interesting question to me, because I do agree with you. It's like, well, if you're just sitting there without, and maybe they've had these talks, maybe they were not privy to what they've talked about, and maybe an extension is coming and they're just trying to figure some things out. I think they didn't want to go into the Juan Soto sweepstakes without a manager. I think they would feel like would be a negative in trying to bring him back. Someone that you don't know is going to be the manager of the team. I don't think that makes him feel like it's a stable franchise, right? So I think that's kind of the thought process here. Is yes, we'll bring Aaron Boone back for the 1 year, trying to get. I think it is part of trying to bring Juan Soto in. And I don't think Aaron Boone's the problem. I know I hear from Yankee fans all the time. There's not too many people who are. I think you say this all the time. Not too many people who are like happy with their managers. Like, you can name 4 or 5 teams. Like, yeah, I love my manager. Like the managers don't really necessarily get very much love. I don't think Boone's been the problem. I think it's more of an organizational thing with their with the like baseball fundamental skills that we saw that were not on display, or the lack of them was on display, I should say. So I don't think that's necessarily all his fault. That's more of an organization thing. Do I think they should have cut him? No. I think that's my answer to this question is I think it was important to bring him back for the Juan Soto sweepstakes.
Oh, boy. So where do I sit on this stuff? Like when your team doesn't do the fundamentals right, how much of that falls on a manager or
It's
coach?
not that much, if I'm being honest, Chris.
I know.
Like,
That's the thing.
go watch these teams practice. The manager he's talking to the media. He's doing his managerial duties. It's the coaches that work with players.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. My question is always this. If you don't like, and I'm going to mix sports here. If you don't like your coach / manager or quarterback, who can you realistically get that's going to be 100% better? And let's just focus on the manager or coach situation here. Who would you, if Aaron Boone was fired today, who would you get your hands on that you absolutely love? Now, you could play this game. We used to have Carlos Mendoza in our system, and look what he did with the Mets. You're right. You're right. But on May 29th, I declared them dead because they look like a lifeless team. And they scratched and clawed and made it all the way to Game 6 of the NLCS. Now, let's play it out. Would you have been okay, Yankee fans, if they had just made it to Game 6 of the ALCS? No. They made it to Game 5 of the World Series, and you're still pissed at Aaron Boone. And that's okay. Like, those are your expectations. You and I had a discussion about that, about Yankees fans' expectations. My point is that there is no surefire home run. You want to go hire Joe Madden? Great. Go talk to some Cubs fans who are like, we won the 2016 World Series in spite of his managing, not because of his managing. He might have turned the mentality around when he got there. But as far as the game action, which is what we're talking about for Aaron Boone, because the Yankees, they all seemingly love him. Aaron Judge can't say enough positive things about Aaron Boone. I don't know if he's MFing him behind closed doors, but it sure doesn't feel that way. So if you've won over the locker room, isn't that 90% of the battle?
Yeah. And I think he does a good job dealing with the media, and I think he's been able to kind of navigate that landscape there. So, yeah, look, all like the fundamental stuff, I would put the manager as like the third person to blame on that. Number one would be like, hey, like your infield coaches and the base running coaches and the hitting coaches, like those are the guys that are working day in and day out with these guys. Like that's it. The manager doesn't even write like the schedule for the day. That's the bench coach's job. So like they're number one, and you could say, hey, you could put Cashman because he's a baseball ops guy and has to decide up and down the organization, what their philosophies are, whatever that is. But I'd put the coaches number one, and then I'd put the players number two before I go to the manager. Because the players, if they said, hey, I want to go work on our bunt defense, I want to go work on our PFPs, like then they'd go do it. So like sometimes you have to take the onus and say, I'm going to go work myself. So I'd put Boone third on the list of who I'd blame for unfundamentally sound baseball.
Go listen to last week's episode of the Rose Rotation with Miguel Rojas, where he talks about Freddie Freeman holding the players accountable on their base running. It really is excellent. Because it talks about how superstars set the tone. And I'm not pointing fingers at other superstars on other teams, but
so true though.
It lifts up what that Dodgers team was all about this year en route to a World Series championship. It was very we want to thank SeatGeek once again for sponsoring this edition of Baseball Today. So baseball's done, but it's still the official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, and it is still the best place to buy tickets. So go do it for NFL, college football still going on. College hoops just started, NBA, NHL, concerts, festivals. Get your early tickets for the 2025 season. Schedules are already out, so you can do that. Here's the great thing about SeatGeek. They rate every ticket on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know exactly what you're getting. They color-code it as well. So green dot, that's thumbs up. Red dot, that is thumbs down. Sometimes you'll look at like an NBA floor, game, and you'll see floor seats and there's a red dot by it. And you're like, how in the world can you have a red dot for an NBA floor seat game? Well, that's because it's not the best deal for you. They are watching out for your wallet. And by the way, everybody can use the code today10 for 10% off any tickets at SeatGeek, whether you're a brand new customer or not. Doesn't matter how many times you bought tickets before on the SeatGeek app. Today 10 still going to get you 10% off your next order. So go take out that phone, open up the SeatGeek app, or download it today. Add that code today10. What in the world are you waiting for? Do it now, because this offer is only available for a very limited time. Code is today10, 10% off your next order. We'll see you for business. All right, finally, it's the reason I'm wearing the Pirates cap today. That would be that their budding superstar, Paul Skeens, and his girl, Livy Dunn, the social media queen out there. They were on College Game Day Saturday from Baton Rouge. Their college, LSU, ended up getting their butt kicked by Alabama, but they did the predictions segment. Maybe you remember earlier this year, Nick Saban, who is now part of College Game Day, went on Pat McAfee's show, and he said, well, Vanderbilt, like, they're the doormat of the SEC. Every place in the SEC is tough to play except for Vanderbilt. And then Vanderbilt, what'd they do? They took it to Alabama. Well, Livy Dunn took it to Nick Saban.
Someone once said that Vanderbilt was the easiest place to play in the SEC. Oh, God. But not today. I'm going with Vanderbilt.
Attaway. They really should have let Coach Saban have it a little bit more than they did. But it was good to see them out there. That was fun. If you could have guested on one show, and it doesn't have to be a sports show, it could be any sort of show, drama, comedy, anything, what would you have picked?
I mean, if we're talking any like media, like if we go movies, I'd be in Lord of the Rings, like 1000%. But you want to go TV shows, I would go Rings of Power. Same thing, same Tolkien storyline there. I'd want to be an elf. But I don't think I have like the complexity, and like my hair is dark, and that doesn't usually work out for the elves. They're more blonde than anything. Although sometimes, it differs depending on who you are. I think I'm more like of the mortal men though. So I'd be more in like the Isildur or the Aragorn train. So that's, of course, like people who know me know that's exactly what I would pick.
Now that is a world with which I'm not super familiar, but I appreciate your passion for it. It's something that ever since I've known you, you've been 100% in. So I love it that that's something you want to do. For me, I was the one kid that was voted funniest in the class and always thought he was funniest. So I've always tried to, it's kind of a weird combination, but we've talked about that before. It's fairly accurate. So I would have wanted to do an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I like that.
Because I just love the comedy. I think it is amazing what they do, what they pull off, and how they do it. So I would have liked to have challenged myself to see if I could hang with some of the best in the biz.
I'll name drop my buddy Matthew Stafford. He has a great Larry David story. He met him after he got traded to the Rams, and he was talking to him, and in Larry David's voice, he said, congratulations on being traded. And Matthew's like, yeah, I think that's gonna work out for both sides, fairly well. As you know, the Detroit Lions got a ton of draft picks and all that. So Matthew's just trying to play like the, I think it's gonna be good for both of us, me and Jared. And Larry goes, no, not so much. Just for you. Just gonna be good for you. Which is like such a Curb Your Enthusiasm thing to do.
That's great. So. Very, very good. I know his entire life must be fascinating, the way Larry David walks around. Just, yeah, it's good.
It ended up being right that Matthew was right. It's good for both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. These off-season episodes are fun-filled. We appreciate your support. We're off to a great start. So keep hitting the like button, subscribe. We know that you already do that. Post the comments, too. It's okay if you disagree with us. That's perfectly fine. We don't take anything personally around here. Keep doing that because it just helps us, right? With the algorithm, we want to get this show out to more and more baseball fans. We want to be your number one place for your off-season baseball shopping. So for our one-of-a-kind producer, Dan Rourke, the uber-talented Trevor Plouffe, I am Chris Rose. We will see you Thursday, if not sooner, if some news breaks here on Baseball Today.